Now let's dive into today's exciting topic. In our increasingly digital workplace, finding ways to keep employees connected and engaged is more crucial than ever. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker, Michael D'Onofrio, a principal consultant with Improving, who's here to revolutionize how we think about workplace collaboration. Michael's presenting on Modern Collaboration Gets Social with Viva Engage. And trust me, you're in for a treat. He's going to take us on a journey through this powerful tool that's changing the game in employee interaction. From building vibrant online communities to facilitating knowledge sharing, from employee recognition to real-time interactions, Viva Engage is bringing employees together in ways we've never seen before. Michael will walk us through everything, the basics, the key features, and the most impactful use cases. You'll learn about the benefits for individual employees and the entire organization. By the end of the session, you'll understand why Viva Engage is more than just another collaboration tool. It's a transformation in how companies communicate and share information. So are you ready to explore the future of workplace collaboration? Let's give a warm welcome to our speaker, Michael D'Onofrio.
Thank you so much for that intro, Daniel. Let's get going. And as mentioned, first plug the series itself, Next Level Modern Collaboration. This is the first talk. The goal here is to go beyond the out-of-the-box Microsoft 365, take collaboration to the next level, and really show you some things that are going to improve communication, collaboration, engagement across your organization. And we're starting with Viva Engage, which is more of that social media tool, as we said. But you've got several other great talks lined up. No, that is not a typo. You will be engaging with Josh Loftus and Alex Loftus, two brothers from the Chicago area here at Improving. We'll be doing the next two talks, and we'll be wrapping up with Robbie Lasek as we go through building a line of business application within 365, unlocking the potential of Microsoft Power Pages, and then wrapping up with project management and planner. And you'll be able to register for all these as you did this within the Improving website. The link there is at the bottom. All right, quick agenda for what we're going to cover today. Little intro, little background first, talking about building relationships and communicating in this modern workplace. Getting into Viva Engage, what it is and what it isn't. Talk a little bit about the history and evolution of that. Big topic that comes up a lot is the difference between Microsoft Teams and Viva Engage. We'll cover that. Then we'll get into the nuts and bolts a little bit, really center on building a communities, what that means, the strategy behind building a good community, how you can lead to success, how it becomes measurable, and then some real world use cases. I always find that those are really important. What are people doing out there? What are businesses like yours doing to utilize Viva Engage, and where are they finding success? There's a few different ways to definitely use the product. So we want to explore those, and then we'll actually get into a little bit of a demo and see some of Viva Engage in action. So first, that history, really talking about building relationships. And I chose this photo. I really think it's funny in some ways, but going into that Wayback Machine, I had a colleague here engaging with a client and referring to that social media and that social engagement. And like, it's kind of like the water cooler, right? It's all about the water cooler. And I was like, do people even know what that is anymore? I'm old enough to remember back in the day when this actually was a physical place and a physical thing. Of course, we were all in the office. And the idea in the old adage is you're gathering around the water cooler to just talk about your day and engage with employees in different ways. It's a very dated concept, much like the colors and fashion in this photo. It's changed, right? So it's gone from this, everybody's in the office, people are engaging and talking about different topics. And it's not just about the chit chat. It's also about what you're working on, what your boss is doing. Hey, maybe there's different things that we've been working on or we could be working on. Let's talk about those. And it looks a lot more like this, right? We're now really spread out. We're very remote. We're working across the country on projects. We're working internationally. It's really changed since those early days. And so how are we really maintaining those relationships? That's something that hasn't changed, is the human element of this, right? What do people really want to do? How do they want to engage? They need some way to maintain those relationships. And so looking at that cross communication, looking at how we do that. We know there's email and all these data tools that really don't work very well. How do we really kind of understand each other, understand the company, and really feel part of a bigger picture, feel part of a bigger team, exchange knowledge, really learn things and help each other learn things. Where before you could be, over someone's shoulder or sitting in the same room together, we don't get that opportunity. Viva Engage helps us kind of bridge that gap in that modern workplace. And I'll show you some good examples of that today. Before we really dive in, Microsoft had a concept that they used in the past called loops and talked about kind of how communication works using their products. We've kind of made our own version of that and modernized that. And the idea is kind of how these, things fit together. How do all these tools work within one environment? And when we really think about kind of communication, the location of information, the exchange of information, it usually starts with one single source of truth. And for us, that would be the SharePoint Modern intranet. Having that one place where employees can go, get information, get news, find tools, really feel connected to the company in a lot of ways because everyone has access to the same information. That next loop that comes in and that next layer is Teams. And Teams is definitely focused more on productivity. It's focused more on project-based work, deadlines, project management. Sure, there is a communication aspect to it that's very useful. There's a lot of chat in there, so there is some crossover with Viva Engage. We'll show some examples of that. But Teams is really that layer of working with smaller groups, having permissions to see certain things and work on certain things before they're ready to be shared in different ways. Where Viva Engage comes in on top of that is broadening that reach. Now we might be reaching out between offices, between organizations, but between departments and starting to share a lot more information and do it in a kind of real-time exchange in different ways, capturing more of that like social aspect that everybody's used to on their phone with, say, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that kind of thing, brings in a lot more of those fun elements and allows for communication to be based not only on just a timeline, which is basically Teams. And like I said, we'll get into that, but now we can see things trending and being liked and shared. And there's a lot more of that activity happening within Viva Engage. As that spectrum broadens out, there could be a lot of other types of devices and screens and kiosks and all kinds of different stuff of where information is disseminated within an office. But you can see as it gets a little more fringe, things get collected a little bit differently, maybe a little bit more scattered. These three main layers are what Microsoft is really wanting and encouraging an enterprise to be involved with. And just one plug there, all these things have their individual apps. There is an app for Teams, there is an app for Viva Engage, and of course, there's a SharePoint app as well. So everything is incredibly mobile friendly right out of the box. A lot of advantages there for sure. Couple of big stats that Microsoft is, definitely a juggernaut when it comes to collecting information like this. So really the benefits, why is this becoming a popular tool and an important tool? Well, they've got some good stats behind that. 75% reduction in efforts spent discovering content. I think that's a huge thing, is really just findability, getting to the information you need fast and being able to share that type of information across a really large enterprise or even a small enterprise can be challenging. And Viva Engage is a tool that really helps disseminate and share information like that. Kind of a scary thing there, the employee attrition, 20% reduction there. People feeling more a part of something, feeling more engaged, realizing value, being able to share things, have their voice heard. This is, again, a tool and a platform that allows for that. And then we get into just base productivity, Viva Engage allowing people to become more productive. The idea of weekly operations and time recouped, self-service, things like that, employees getting together, crowdsourcing information, ideas, polls. You'll see a lot of examples like that. And when it comes to cost, we're not focusing on that today, but the big news is if you are in the cloud and you're in Microsoft 365, you already have access to Viva Engage. So a lot of things come right out of the box without extra cost. There are other licensing and different issues or different tiers, if you will, that allow for a lot more functionality, but there is a lot that you get right out of the box that you could take advantage of. So we always encourage that as well. So let's get into Viva Engage itself and what it is and what it isn't. So first, a little more history. Many of you might be familiar with Yammer. For those going way back, 2012 is when Microsoft buys Yammer, buy them for 1.2 billion at the time. And this was Microsoft's attempt to really start to leverage that social enterprise and really think about how people communicate as it came out of the years of Skype and all those kinds of things. But there were problems and there were adoption problems for sure. And there were definitely some negatives that came along with it. And for the most part, a lot of individuals that I talk to now, whenever Yammer comes up, it's like, yeah, that was just never really very useful to us. I've worked with a few clients that have found success with it in the past, but definitely I hear the negatives more than the positives. And how did that start to change? Well, definitely around COVID, of course, and there's a little kind of graphic here on the right of seeing those numbers jump, and it's really around Teams. Teams adoption really started to kind of change the game, and you can see a huge jump from 20 million users to 115 million users in 2020, 2024, 320 million users. Teams adoption became a huge thing, and so most people were saying, well, I don't have a lot of use for Yammer, but we have a ton of use for Teams. And Microsoft started to see, well, we really need to divide a line here and make things very different, make things better, and give some real purpose. And that's usually where we saw things fail, is if during COVID, people started using Yammer just as a necessity. They didn't really have a strategy behind it. They just said, hey, let's flip the switch on, get these communities started, get some posts out there. Let's start kind of engaging with people, but we don't really know how to do it. And we don't really know, what the strategy is or what we expect to happen. Let's just see if people like it or not. And just like anything else, if you don't put that push behind it, you don't have anything meaningful to really share with people, they're most likely going to abandon it. So when we look at where Viva has grown, and I just wanted to state the preference here that we are talking about Viva Engage. Viva Engage is one piece of a larger landscape within the Viva suite of apps. There are a lot here, and you can see the dividing lines of employee communication and communities. You have amplify, engage, and connections. There's workplace analytic and feedback, knowledge management, goal setting. So there's definitely a lot, and we can see maybe some future talks about some of these different apps and how they all work together. But today our goal is really to talk about Viva Engage, because out of all these apps, it is one of the most powerful, I would say, that is in this suite. All right, so let's really start to get into what Viva Engage is good at and what it can do. And the main thing I really see break down are these kind of 5 examples here. Connecting people across a company to strengthen those professional relationships, giving a vehicle to build on that social capital. That's a really important piece of what Viva Engage could offer. How it starts to do that is through a vehicle like building communities, really showing a diverse interests, shared interests, business initiatives. You can build a community around a lot of things, and we'll get into that within our use cases. But creating that kind of platform now and having some goals behind it give people some meaning to participate and get them to have value when they leave. And that's a really important part of it. Spark engagement, of course. This allows for engagement between leadership and employee. That's a big use case that we see. Way to kind of amplify the vision, shape the culture, feed that culture out into some meaningful ways, get that discussion started, get things to participate, events, all kinds of things that are happening within an organization can be promoted and be shared and have pictures posted about it, get that social media type of buzz around what you're trying to accomplish within the organization. Where I see it very beneficial, even to me personally, is exchanging of knowledge. I always see this in a lot of organizations too, the idea of the silo, right? We're very siloed in what we do, how we learn things, how we create things within our department or our own group. How do we start sharing a lot of that knowledge? How do we start to get different groups together to really see what's being created and being shared and disseminated, democratized? Viva Engage is awesome at that, creating communities and exchanging knowledge. We'll show you some good examples of that. And then this concept of activate people, contribute to the experience and the enterprise. Let's see those stories. Let's see what people are doing. Let's experience things that are maybe a little more personal in some ways. There is the ability for that as well. So again, we'll show use cases around all of these items as we go forward. Quick look at it to really see, hey, what are some of those things that we just talked about? It needs to look engaging. It needs to feel engaging. And as I mentioned, it has a lot of that social media appeal to it. And this is where things do become very different than, say, Teams or even SharePoint or a lot of the other types of Microsoft products. Is there is that fun element to it. There is this more lively kind of feel. And that's part of that engagement. I think this is the expectation that a lot of people have. They're using LinkedIn on a regular basis. They're using Google products. They're using, Apple products and all these things that are out there. They have an expectation of what it's going to look like, how it's going to feel, and it needs to be appealing. There needs to be that, those aesthetics matter. And so Microsoft has definitely taken time to create something that is aesthetically pleasing and also very intuitive to use. For those that have used Teams, again, I get this question quite a bit when we go into new engagements and talk about collaboration modernization and say, well, we already have Teams, we're doing that. What's the difference? Why do we need Viva Engage, or what could it do for us that's different? And kind of hit this a little bit before, but then we'll get into some more specifics here. Really, it's about collaboration, right? That's Microsoft Teams. We're working on something together. We're building something. We have deadlines. We have individuals that are involved, and we're keeping this community pretty closed when you think about it like that. This is a specialized team that is working in a specific area. So it is really focused on the work. It's focused on co-authoring and building documents and building artifacts and things like that together. You get all that great document management and all the things that you would expect. Now you're integrating lots of other tools and apps, and you're using Planner and OneNote to track things and manage things. And it's really the center of your digital workspace. That's Teams, right? And of course, you're using it for calls and chat. And there are those things about communication, but it's very focused. And this is where Viva Engage can become very different when it takes that community approach. This is a much broader reach is really the goal. There are private communities that can be created, of course, but there are also open communities. And that's the big difference of anybody could see what's happening in there. Anybody could have a window. And if you want to participate and start making posts and doing things, all you have to do is hit that join button, and then you're in and you're participating. That works very well for Viva Engage. You're building networks. You're more thinking about community and connecting to people in different ways. Becomes a little more personal in that way. And it's that richer experience where Teams would manage a timeline chronologically. Every single post within that chat just goes by time. And that's what I see. And it just kind of keeps building and building. Viva Engage has a lot of different ways that I could interact with that and personalize that to me. I want to see what's trending. I want to see what's popular. I want to see what had the most comments, the most likes, the most shares, whatever it is. There are ways that I can build that timeline that is very different. That's where it becomes, I think, a lot more about the social aspect and more about the integration and the sharing of knowledge. If you have a community, for example, it's all about sharing knowledge about a particular topic. I want to see the trending topics within that community and start to learn and grow and participate in those conversations that matter most to me. That's one of the big differences for sure. Talked about the mobile app before, just wanted to show it off really quick. Great mobile app for Viva Engage, really kind of see how things work from a home feed example. It's another way things that are a little bit different than Teams. Yes, Teams has a way where you can see information from other places, but it's pretty rudimentary. The home feed, again, feels more like social, and I might be part of multiple communities, things that are about my location, things that are about my profession, my interests. I could see those all come together in a feed, and I can interact with all those posts as I go through it. Of course, I can go to those communities, and now you're starting to see a little bit of the power, questions and answers, live events. We'll talk about some of those things, and we'll show those differences within the interface. Gives a little more power to that engagement. So how does it work? Here's where you can see how I can post. And again, I'll show examples of this. So I'll go through some of these quickly, but I wanted to just give that lay of the land. I can participate in those discussions and I can create a discussion. When I go to create a post, I get choices. I can create a question. I can give praise to another employee. So there is a particular format for that. And I can start a poll. So you can see what those look like here. Question and answer has a specific format to it, kind of calls out that question. Some communities could be based on questions and answers. That's another element that's extremely different than teams. Praise, that can jump out as well. And obviously participating in polls, getting opinions on things. Viva Engage is a great tool for that, has those things built in. Finding things is also a very different type of experience. There are ways to socialize more of what you're doing and create some trending things using topics, for example. Topics is a big one because there is a lot more behind topics. There's actually a concept where topics spans across many Microsoft products. But in this instance, we'll show examples of that when we get into the demo. I can create a topic, and this allows me to now have specific posts and specific information, which could span multiple communities, now come together on that topic. And I can search by that topic and start to filter by that topic as well and see information that way. Hashtags are also part of it. So unlike topics that would be kind of set in the system, hashtags allow the user to decide how they want to hashtag things. So we've seen that, positive and negative with some clients using it, just because obviously it's up to the user to be able to tag it in certain ways. But it's something that people become a lot more familiar with. And then, of course, you can click on that hashtag, see every post that's been tagged with that item. It's another way to kind of gather things and to get more attention to certain kind of information by using hashtags. Announcements is another feature that's in there. And we get a lot of questions about notifications and how notifications are handled. We even heard some negative stories, right? Of, wow, I get so many notifications and things like that. Why do I want to use another tool where I'm going to get that? Well, of course, you can turn some of those off. But when there's something very important that someone wants to post, they can tag it as an announcement. It'll give it a little kind of icon, make it look a little more important. And then there's the ability to force some notifications to kind of send an email notification on that. So it's up to that individual and sometimes at the admin level to say, hey, these are really important things. We want to make sure that they get the attention they deserve. Another thing you can do is pin a post. So you can always have that post at the top of the feed within that community. Make sure that it's pinned so everyone can see it. Again, more of that kind of social kind of control that you might see in some other apps like that. Come together here within Viva Engage. Access is huge. I'll show examples of this. It can be accessed almost anywhere. And the idea is that it can be built and stylized to your needs. If you're someone who lives in Teams all the time, actual communities from Viva Engage can be embedded right in Teams, and vice versa. Things can be embedded within SharePoint. I'll show you how some of these things get accessed, but for those that are familiar with Microsoft products, you've kind of got that master main menu in the upper left. When you're in your browser, when you're using Outlook, you can then have links to Viva Engage put in all of these places, have the app available, make it super easy for people to find. And again, put it where people work the most. If you're spending a lot of time in Teams, SharePoint, you can have access to not only Viva Engage as a whole, but specific communities can be embedded in those experiences. So let's get into building communities before we start getting into our demo and really talk about what the strategy is and how to make great communities, basically. Really kind of starting with the purpose, just like anything else. It's about understanding what you're trying to accomplish, what the adoption kind of rules are going to be, what you want to do, gain new members, educate the community, engagement, how will you keep people coming back? Like I said earlier, not having some of those things kind of laid out, turning on, say, the default all company within Yammer didn't really do a lot for people. There was really saying, hey, if I see a post that's not really for me, I'll probably learn to ignore that. We got to think of ways to engage with users and keep them coming back and keep them helping other people really foster that growth. So thinking about the engagement, how you want things to grow, and the content, that's going to be really important of what types of content. Again, is it more of a question answer community? Is it going to be more about allowing people to post whatever they want versus curating things? We'll show some examples of that. I like this tool here. I found this on community canvas.org and got the tip from some research that I was doing, basically kind of asking yourself these questions and going through a planning process. Community management, what is that really going to look like? So let's start to brainstorm and think about what is the purpose? Who is this for? What are the values that should be here? What are the most three important principles, for instance? Let's get down some of those goals like we mentioned. How do you want to start to measure those goals? What are the metrics going to be? What is that experience? How are people going to learn about this? How are we going to promote it? What roles are going to be involved? We'll talk about that a little bit. There will be an admin role within the community. You could have multiple admins. How do you want some of those rules to kind of play out? You can create your own guidelines for each community and make sure that users are following those, and have the admins encourage the proper use of the community. How are we going to govern it? How are we going to make decisions around that? Who gets to decide those things? And then ultimately that communication, what are the channels to communicate? How frequent? How are we going to kind of get the notoriety and get the wheels kind of turning to get people more involved? Asking yourself these questions are really important when you start out, because again, having something that is very well thought out and hitting a need that your organization has, that's really important, because that's going to really lead to the success of the community, or ultimately, if it's going to get abandoned, maybe something was missed. And this really helps you avoid that happening. A couple of examples, as you can kind of see, the fun and engaging content that's going to be created, telling stories, promoting news and different things like that, making things a little bit personal. There are features where you could follow individuals. We'll touch on that a little bit, but when it comes more to community management, who's sort of the leader of that community? We want people to be in there posting and telling stories and engaging with our users, to really keep them coming back. So thinking about the type of content you created, not so much just turning it on and letting people get in there and do whatever they want. If you want to build that community around a real topic, you got to kind of get that fire started first. Little background on the administration in Viva Engage. There are all kinds of different controls, different rules that can be put in for sure. An admin can have that control to add, remove members, add new admin, control if the community is private or not. You can preload, obviously, and have members in from, say, your sales team and your marketing team, and you really want those groups to coexist. You preload them all in, they're automatically opted in. You can control, can they opt out? You can also then create your topics. That is, like I said, can open up into a bigger world. So there's more to learn on that. We could probably do a separate talk just on how topics works within 365. But here again, that admin has that control to do that. There's the little official check mark. I'll show you an example of that. You can make those official communities versus other communities that are started up, say, even a book club or some fun things that can be created. Hey, the official channels are the ones with the check marks on them. Some of the other individuals are creating some communities, and those all coexist. But here you can see there's some branding elements. I can create that avatar. I can put a background image, create my guidelines, create a lot of quick links and things like that within the community. So there's a lot of control and things you can do within that setup kind of world. Copilot, we get to ask this a lot. This is a probably more intentional, complicated graphic. We could do our own talk on that too, but yes, it's available. There is a writing assistant in creating posts and looking at summaries and language models and things like that. We're not going to get into that today, but it is available, which is really good. And that is, of course, the artificial intelligence, the AI engine. That's what Copilot is for Microsoft. And yes, it is available within Viva Engage if there's ever any question around that. All right, let's hit some use cases before we get into the demo. We already talked about a lot of them organically, I think, here, but I've kind of grouped them here to really kind of see well, what kind of, buckets could these fall into? The knowledge sharing, education, and training. We've seen some really great examples here with a lot of clients using that. Many organizations start champion programs. They might have power users and things like that. Having communities around the education on even a certain Microsoft tool, it's not too meta to have a Viva Engage community about using Viva Engage. Having power users in there talking about the best practices, how we use it, why we use it. Let's learn about it. Let's post really helpful links and videos and information about it. That works really well. So you can see here, getting those SMEs together, the subject matter experts about a particular topic, get them really kind of posting interesting stuff that employees haven't thought about. That can really get the conversation started. This goes into best practices, processes, procedures, things like that. We've seen them really successful around that technology help, plain and simple, of just IT kind of leading the way in some instances, allowing for beyond, hey, you just got to submit a ticket for that, but here's a place to really learn and grow and communicate with each other. And IT is in there answering some of the harder questions or directing people to the right place to go. But also your power users and your champions are in there doing that. Different types of training programs, certifications, whether they're internal or external, how to use the LMS system, things like that. The promotion of company culture, pure and simple, of like what your guiding principles are, what your vision is, what the vision is for the year, the 10-year plan, whatever it might be, knowledge sharing around how you're living that, how you're growing that. We've seen a lot of success around that. Cross-department interests, we've definitely seen some really good use cases of bringing together those departments. And the next level really is about allowing people from the outside. And yes, it is possible. If you wanted to create a community, there's getting into obviously permission and access and a lot of things there. A little bit above my head, to be honest, of getting into the weeds there, but I've seen it done. And it's really cool to be able to allow people from the outside to share things. Say you're collaborating with a company around a particular subject matter, you can create a community for you and that enterprise to work together. On-site discussions, real-time sharing and updating. This is really huge for, say, events, corporate outings, or sponsored conferences, or things like that. We've seen a lot of successful use cases where it's actually the individuals running the show, and they're the ones that are communicating in the background and promoting things and talking about things with other employees. They're getting their work done that way. They got to be at a certain place. They're meeting at a certain time. Things start in 5 minutes, whatever it is. You can use Viva Engage as a tool for on-site. It works great. Other ways of real time is just being in the field. We've seen a lot of success where salespeople are out there talking to clients and customers. They get to go, say, see their products being used within that area. I've seen this really great in manufacturing where they're able to, say, get into a warehouse or get into on the floor, see the products, see the machinery being used, take pictures, take videos, see some of the competitor stuff in there. They're posting that, to Viva Engage. Others are seeing them and commenting and saying, yep, last week I saw that too, connecting to their post that they had. It's a great way for that real-time sharing of media like that, pictures and videos for sure. Seen a lot of great success with that. Well, I think we hit this one a couple times, the two-way conversation. You could set up a community just as questions and answers. We've seen this happen multiple times. Ask leadership anything. Ask a particular executive questions about this upcoming event or whatever it is. The community's actually catered to that. And now you've got people communicating with certain individuals. And that's where some of that restriction comes into place. You can make it so only certain individuals can post and certain can answer. You could have everybody in there answering whatever you would like to do. You have some control over who is making posts and who isn't. Then you get into the ability to follow individuals, and we'll touch on that a little bit, but we'll more stress the idea of the communities and how people work together within those. The social communities, the employee milestones, the anniversaries, the birthdays, things to celebrate. Those work really well too. We've seen these in the past try to be like a particular SharePoint site. We've seen them be a Teams channel for some, companies trying to do that. And they just don't work as well as Viva Engage, allowing people to kind of give those shout outs and employee recognitions, presenting those awards and doing those things within this community, gearing it towards some of those fun kind of softer kind of things within the company, gives people a place and a forum to give those shout outs and get a lot of attention to them. And if, let's say, you've got all your employees in there, works really well. There are other use cases, of course, like new employees that could be an extension of the onboarding experience. Hey, you're getting onboarded, but guess what? You have access to this community, so you could talk to other new employees. You could share information and share experiences. Isn't that a great way for people to help each other out? And like I even mentioned, like the book clubs and things like that. It doesn't have to be all sort of super professional, super, stuffy, if you will. There can be a lot of fun topics and a lot of fun communities that are created as well. We've seen some clients even create marketplaces. People are reselling things. They're reselling concert tickets. They're reselling personal items. They become super popular, and people are using it for that too. So it's really about, again, setting those goals, deciding where you want things to be as a company. So we can dive into our demo now. We've got a little bit of time left. We'll save some time for questions at the end too. If there was anything that came through in the chat, Daniel, we could pause here and see if there's anything to field, or we'll take those questions at the end.
There's a question in the chat. Are there good ways to get leadership to buy into open Q&A?
Yeah, that's a good question for sure. I think it's all about probably starts with the culture. I think of, do you have that culture and that desire to really connect your employees to leadership? And if that desire is really there, I think that this becomes that tool. And if we're starting off of saying, hey, is there a gap there? Are employees not feeling that they're connected in that way? Are they feeling that, hey, we get a little exposure at the town hall or this or that, but then things kind of go silent and we don't feel a connection there? Let's say maybe you do a survey. Now you can kind of prove to leadership that, yeah, people are wanting something like this, asking questions in that survey, let's say, about if you had a forum to ask questions, you had the ability to do this, would you take advantage of it? If you get a lot of employees saying yes, now you're starting to kind of say, hey, there is a gap here. There is something that we can do. Let's show them how easy Viva Engage is to use. Again, this could be something that can be turned on and off. So if you want that community to live for a certain while around, say, big events or certain times, for the, this quarter is, ask the executive team anything this quarter. And then after those 3 months, the community is turned off and suspended for a little while until the next year. However you want to do it, there's different ways that you can control it. So, yeah, I think that's a great question. And hopefully that's where they see the value.
I saw that you had this is a personal question from me.
Sure.
You had a role called champion in your
Yes.
example. Is that similar to a community manager? Is there a difference? Would there be a role of a community manager?
Yes, there typically is a role of an admin or community manager, could be multiple people. The term I was using there of champions could be used in a lot of different ways. A lot of times we see technology champions, something that's part of sort of the change management world. Hey, we're converting everything now, like for organizations that are just rolling out Teams for the first times, let's say. We want to have some Teams champions that are there to help people within each department, someone to go to talk about Teams and things like that. That's where some of those champion kind of programs and things like that can really kind of come to life in a community. When it comes to the actual management of the community, that's where you have some roles in there of people that are managing requests of people to get in, if it's a private community, etc., or just kind of controlling the individuals in there. Those managers also have the ability to delete posts. I can show an example of that. Can't modify posts. Microsoft has made a good kind of fail safe there of like, I can't put words into somebody else's mouth by modifying that post, but you can remove it. So if there's ever kind of anything malicious, of course, and then you get into more about the community management of saying, hey, this topic and the thing you're talking about, it's not really what this community is about. It's better served over here. So I went ahead and removed it as a community owner. But hey, I'm letting that person know, and I'm also telling them where they could promote that. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did.
All right.
We got a question about how to get started, but I think that's going to be in your demo. So
Yeah,
go.
yeah, we can definitely kind of cover that. So I'll get into a quick demo here, and then we'll save a little bit of time at the end for some additional questions. What I wanted to show first, and this is an improving demo space, so you kind of see some things in here kind of scattered around. Might not be super clean, but basically the idea is the functionality is there. This example of is just being in Teams. And if I'm working every day in Teams, I have my files and my posts and the things that are happening within my Teams world. But you could see here an example of an embedded community of Viva Engage right here within Teams. And now I can see the conversations, I can see the discussion, I can post a question, I can see what individuals are talking about, who's been tagged. This is basically everything that Viva Engage does, and it's right here in Teams. So let's say you've got a use case where there's a particular community that is talking about a particular product that I'm working on. The Teams areas where I'm actually working with R&D and doing things and doing the work, but the conversations that we were having with other departments are happening within this community. Now I have access to both right in the same place. That's the concept here. Of course, then I can get that Viva Engage link right here within my navigation at the left, right here in this main menu. When I hit that, I'm actually going to go to my main page of Viva Engage. And you can see here in the browser, now I'm in Viva Engage and I'm out of, Teams, or I'm out of that world. I don't see my channels anymore. I'm here within Teams. This one doesn't have anything in it right now. If I had a feed or there was a lot of other people posting here, this is where I might see that first feed of everything that's happening because I'm at my home. But quick lay of the land. I can see everything here at the left that's in Viva Engage. I can see communities and storylines, have the ability to favorite different communities, and then I can see all the communities that I'm a part of. I can also explore and find other communities that are available for me to join, and kind of move around. It's maybe going to recommend some things to me. There's more and more of that I'm seeing within the Microsoft world, probably part of the whole AI thing that's building up around things that are related to my job or other communities. It's looking for those keywords and recommending things to me. But here I can kind of discover and see what's all out there. If I hit view all, it's going to give me a list of different items there. But here within my communities, I'll start off with this one called the Social Buzz. And this is just a great way to kind of showcase, hey, if you have a way or a need that you want to get that all company kind of experience out there of what's happening at the company, let's share different information and let's allow our employees to come in. That would be this example. You can see that it's branded. There's the avatar there. It's got the official check mark here, which makes it official. You can see I've hovered over that. Over here are controls of where I could favorite things. And you can see here, there are some different settings. If you're an admin, you have those kind of settings and abilities. Over here in the right column, I can see how many members are a part of this community. This info tab allows for like the guidelines and little information to be shared. And then I can scroll down and see that there could be other links. There's community resources here. I'll talk about those in a few minutes. But what I want to show first is just that main feed here of the Social Buzz. If I scroll down, I could see here it's set to default to all conversations. I'm seeing those different conversations. Here's some praise. Here is something that has been tagged with a topic. That topic is team there. Somebody's posted a graphic. A lot of these are my posts, obviously. The animated GIFs and the emojis and the reactions are all there. And I can kind of scroll down and see all these different posts. But as I mentioned, I have the ability to kind of move some things around here. And I just want to see the questions, or I want to see the unresolved questions. There's a lot of ways to kind of filter what I'm seeing here, and being able to kind of understand what's been posted. that's going to come into play in a lot of different other types of communities. Quick way of just how do I post? Well, it's exactly as you would think. It's just that easy of being able to come in here and click and start typing. So I can share my thoughts, ideas, or updates. I can add people and tag them to it. I can tag them right in line, or I can use this add feature. But here is the example of different types of posts: the discussion, the question, the praise, and the poll. So when I make a selection here, you will see the post style change. This again is more that visual indicator, so users can see those questions kind of pop out. Same thing with our other styles. Our praise has that little design to it, as well as our poll is going to start with, hey, what is your question? Let's get those answers in. To the right here, you see the announcement piece that if I hit that, it's going to kind of tell me what's going to happen if I create this as an announcement. And then, of course, I've got all my typical kind of, fonts, editing, bold, italic, create links, do all those kinds of things, everything that you would expect. I could even put a little piece of code in here. So there's quite a bit that you can do when just creating a regular kind of post. So very simple to do. Should check my spelling, put a question mark on there because it wasn't spelled right. Okay, good. I can fix that. And then I can go ahead and post it. And you'll see that it's posted there. I tagged it as an announcement, and now it's there. If I wanted to go a little bit further, here is where now as an admin, I can do lots of different things. You can always delete or edit your own post. I can now pin that conversation. So now it shows up at the top. And there's, again, ways to kind of help that promotion and make sure people don't miss something. Another example of a community here that I can get into, and this one is the one that's geared around this particular product. Let's say this example is the doorknob product. People sharing information about the product. You can see there's a pinned conversation here. This is an example of a hashtag within a post. If I click that hashtag, it basically acts as if I searched on that piece of information, and you could see here anything that has that tag is going to show up down here. We'll get into the search results in a minute. Come back to that. The other thing here, you can see product idea. See if this one does have, yep, this one has a couple. This is a topic. So I'm going to go back and show that again. Those topics are all clickable. The product idea topic is created here, and you can see here, I could actually follow this topic. And I can then go through and be able to filter that same kind of filter. Let's see everything. Let's see questions or conversations around this topic. Now it's basically allowing me to explore further and get into this specific world to just see things around product idea. That's where it becomes really powerful. The reason I wanted to pause on search is because I wanted to kind of start it from a fresh place so you could see the difference here. Here is where I can obviously search. I've got that main search here. I'm searching Viva Engage. I have the ability to kind of go across and do teams and a lot of other things. I'll go back over here, social buzz. When I do a search, it's going to bring me to that search results world. And you could see here, and we actually saw a little preview of this when I hit the hashtags and things like that, broken down by conversations, communities, because it's searching across community, and I have the ability to kind of drill down into a particular community, people, files, and topics. Topics becomes a part of that search world. So not only can I click on that topic and just explore that further, like I said, follow it, it is part of that search results world as well. And so you can see how ingrained it is. And really, it makes things just a lot easier to find, a lot easier to interact with. And a huge difference between teams and the teams world is this idea of being able to collect all these posts and information, really find things that matter to me and subject matter that I'm interested in. And there's a lot of different use cases you could have behind that. So that's where we see it's really powerful. And of course, there are these kind of like the sub filters getting into a date range and starting to break down, just searching within a particular community and being able to see things like that, people, posted by, post type, all kinds of different ways to continue to filter and sort your results. So those were really some of the big things that I wanted to show. I think the one last thing I could show, just to give us a little bit of time left here, is the idea of our community resources here. And this was a change that Microsoft made really coming out of those Yammer years. What we started to see, and we actually saw this with an organization that was using Yammer a lot in the past, is people were sharing a lot of files within that world, and files weren't managed very well within the old Yammer. So it kind of just created a place where it was just a dumping ground. You couldn't create folders very well, or you could, but you couldn't manage them a lot. It became a little bit confusing. So what Microsoft did was put some SharePoint backbone behind your Viva Engage communities. So now I actually have a SharePoint site that I can go to, and this is where things can be managed. You can see in this instance, this SharePoint site has a little bit of design to it. It puts in a little bit of information, maybe a photo, but it actually kind of tells people, hey, this is what this is for. This is especially important that we've seen for, say, like a use case where marketing is collecting material from sales to use within like a success story or a use case type of story that they want to get out into the world, or a case study. Sorry. How do we start to manage all those photos and videos and all those things people are submitting? That's what this is here for, because now we have a true document library within SharePoint. We can start making folders, organizing all these files that are associated with this community, so we have a good way to extract those things out. That was a big change that Microsoft has brought in over the last few years, and think it's created a lot more power to our Viva Engage communities now. So wanted to highlight that really quick. And how, if there are some extra questions, we can take them, and I'm happy to show anything else within Viva. Obviously, there's a lot to show in here, but my goals today were to kind of show those use cases or explain those use cases and give you a little bit of that real world experience.
Michael, there's a question. Can you show us the mobile experience?
The mobile experience. I cannot here. I don't have a way to showcase the app, but I can tell you it is very similar. And that's the really good thing, is that you can kind of see, if you've had experience with SharePoint and things like that, very out of the box mobile. That when I get in here and I start to even resize my browser, you at least get a little preview of what that is as things start to stack and change, and our navigation becomes kind of a hamburger and things like that. That at least shows you a little bit of what it could do. But the app itself behaves a lot more like that native app and gives you the menuing and all those kinds of things. So yeah, really encourage some test driving on that. Again, if you've got your license and you're in the Microsoft cloud, you'll have access to the app and you'll be able to get in and test it out.
I think that's all the questions.
Okay. All right, really good. I guess with a couple minutes here, I can show you just that one experience of the home, and the idea of having like a storyline. This concept is growing past sort of that idea of the community and allowing users to create their own posts, much like you would on any social site, and then people could follow you. I still think this is kind of getting off the ground, and there's specific use cases for that. Imagine if your executive team was in there, and much like you follow them on LinkedIn, they're actually creating posts within Viva that are just internal, things that they wouldn't share maybe with the outside, things only for the internal group here. And you can follow those individuals and comment on their posts and, engage in a conversation that way. I think there's probably more Microsoft's going to learn, and I'm sure there's more changes to come within this feature and how storylines is going to work in the future. But that's the concept, is that it actually becomes just like following an individual on LinkedIn and seeing all their posts, or following somebody on Facebook. It'll behave in that manner.
How about community conversations in the SharePoint site?
So yeah, like within a SharePoint site, you can embed those things right in. So there's actually some good cross promotion. So if you're creating news items within SharePoint, you want to, blast those as emails and then actually promote them in particular communities, it'll create a post for you and then link back to that news item. And there's ways to kind of do vice versa then to get things. And I have an example of it here actually within this Social Buzz site that you could see where a conversations web part has been put in. And there's a few different styles actually. You could actually embed the entirety of what kind of Viva Engage gives you, where I can create a post and do all those things. You can put that into your SharePoint site, but you could also use conversations, which basically is more of a, hey, I want to view it. And then when I want to post something, I have to hit the start a discussion button and it's going to open it for me. And in some cases, certain web parts will actually then take you into Viva Engage. But basically, it cleans up the posts and makes everything a little more uniform. So it gives you some different styles and some different ways to embed things. Well, I want to thank everybody for taking this time out of their busy day to spend with me over a lunch hour learning about Viva Engage. Of course, if you have questions or anything else, you can go through our channels within Improving. You can find me within LinkedIn as well. But here is my email through Improving here if you have any questions for me specifically. But if you just want to learn more about maybe some of the Viva Engage apps or anything else kind of Microsoft, please don't hesitate to let us know.